Welcome to the Startup Leader Show, where we learn lessons from startup founders and executives. I am your host, Lisa Dreher, and I am really excited to introduce our guest for today, John Bucknell. He is the CEO and founder of Virtus Solis Technologies. Welcome to the show, John.
Thanks, Lisa. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Maybe we can start by having you give a little bit of background on yourself and Virtus Solis Technologies.
No worries. So I am a 30-year veteran of industry. I'm a technical founder. I actually have engineering degrees. I went to school at Cleveland State University in Cleveland, Ohio. I got a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. And then when I was ready to enter industry, if you can see over my shoulder, my dad worked on the Apollo program. So I've been involved with space most of my life. And I wanted to go in aerospace, but in 1995, Boeing laid off 40,000 people the month I graduated. So I ended up pivoting and going where the jobs were. In this case, Detroit's not very far from Cleveland. And I picked up the newspaper and saw all the job openings and took a couple of trips up there and got a job in automotive. So that
Oh,
was my ideal job, but certainly the lessons it taught me around the the ability of mass manufacture to bring costs down dramatically, and frankly got to work on energy systems, which is not something most people think about automotive being. It helped me later on in this business, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But I spent a dozen years in automotive before I got headhunted out of advanced propulsion at General Motors to help SpaceX run their advanced propulsion. So I was hired in 2011 to run the Raptor rocket engine program, which is the primary propulsor of the Starship vehicle. I was the principal engineer, the first guy responsible for that engine, and got a chance to apply some automotive principles around making those systems mass manufacturable and therefore much lower cost. The Raptor is a much more complicated engine than SpaceX had built prior, and they didn't want the cost to get out of control. But like many SpaceXers, I am now an ex-SpaceXer because I ran afoul of the leadership there, but that's fine. I got to do something else. I stayed in LA and worked at another startup called Divergent Technologies, which is bringing to market toolingless manufacture effectively. So metal additive manufacturing, robotic assembly, and generative design. I was employee number two there. I think I have about 40 industry foundational patents around all of that. And I retired from there a few years ago to start Virtus Solis. We incorporated in 2019, and our goal is to bring the first commercial space-based solar power to market. This idea is 100 years old. It first appeared in print in 1923, and the first engineering proposals were 1968. But to date, it had not been economically viable. In fact, NASA asked the U.S. Congress in 1980 for the equivalent of between $2 and $3 trillion to bring it to market. And the first system would have been available in 2006, and they got told no. And then, interestingly, the National Research Council did a audit afterwards of why they got told no, and they said, "You look, the underlying technology is probably going to take another 40 years to be ready." And here we are, 40 years later, and it's true.
oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, that is just so much to unpack. So I am really interested to learn kind of about the main mission that Virtus Solis has. And as I understand it, it is really to bring renewable energy from space down to Earth. So is that accurate? And can you tell me a little bit more?
For sure. So I will tell you that my co-founder and I are both in our 50s, and we'd like to do something meaningful for the balance of our careers. And looking at the energy landscape, things aren't not going in the right direction. We would say that the energy costs are increasing. If you look at most recent data, energy costs as a percentage of global GDP is about 15%, which is quite high considering the periods where prosperity and growth were the greatest were down around 2 to 3%. So we're experiencing relatively high energy costs, and getting through this energy transition, getting away from fossil fuels, which still account for 85% of the global energy use. We need a solution set that will displace fossil fuels on cost alone. Among technologies that might do that, the only clean, firm, scalable technologies that we have are nuclear fission and space-based solar. And space-based solar is just putting the solar panels in space where the sun always shines. And in fact, the sunlight's about 40% more intense than it is after it passes through the atmosphere. And if you put the satellites up high enough and have a wireless power link to bring it to the ground that passes through clouds and weather, you can have clean, renewable energy 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, anywhere on the planet. So that is the underlying foundation. And if you do it right and engineer to cost, you can deliver that energy at costs below what even what fossil fuel costs are today.
Wow, amazing. Okay, so where are you in the actual development cycle? Like how soon could we potentially be seeing energy from space here on Earth?
So as a deep tech startup, things take a little bit longer than other technology startups. We were incorporated in 2019, as we said, and we were funded since 2021. So we've done all the pre-production type work you might want to do. You might know that wireless power transfer is not something you hear about very often. In fact, most people don't realize that they have a wireless power transfer device in the pocket. So anything that's using RF wireless power transfer is something that you're not familiar with, and we had to solve that first to bring wireless power from 35,000 kilometer altitude down to the ground. So we spent the past almost 3 years developing that underlying technology, and about a year ago, we demonstrated the most efficient, longest distance, most power wireless power transfer ever in a suburb of Indianapolis. And now that that technology is ready and we've done that proof of concept, we are ready to scale up and do the rest of the engineering to bring it to market. We have customer agreements to work with them to develop the first one, but we hope to have the first commercial system in orbit in 2030. And we've announced in February that we're going to fly a subscale pilot plant in 2027.
Wow. Okay, that is really, really exciting. Um, so I know that before we got on the show, you were talking about having participated in an event just recently. Can you talk a little bit about that event?
For sure. So last week in London was the first international conference on energy from space. It's organized by the UK Space Agency, the European Space Agency, and the UK Department of Energy Security and Net Zero. So you might know, if you're looking at the energy markets, that Western Europe and UK in particular are struggling with very, very high energy prices. And to solve it, a few years ago, the UK decided to pursue what they could do to resolve their energy challenges. And they are going to pursue a lot more nuclear reactors, fission, offshore wind, and space-based solar, because space-based solar has this promise of solving all the underlying challenges. So this is the first in-person meeting of all the industry leaders in this vertical. So there's representation from space agencies, from commercial businesses operating in this vertical, which are about 4 or 5, including 3 from the US. And then a lot of universities who are working on the underlying technology that have been sponsored by the UK government. We were lucky enough to be invited very early, and we were able to present about 5 different topics, including a panel discussion around the implementation of this. So it was great to see all these people I only know virtually and operating on our vertical, and present our perspective on how we can do this quickly and cheaply, so that we can bring it to market.
That is amazing. Okay, so it seems like you've made a lot of progress since you were founded in 2019. What have been some of the biggest keys to your success so far?
Just like any technical solution, I would say that the organizational challenges are bigger than the technical challenges. So always hire the most capable team you can. That would be the number one thing. And the other big thing is always be as capital efficient as you can. So we were lucky enough to have very talented people. My co-founder was a colleague of mine at General Motors in advanced propulsion 15 years ago. And when I wanted to build a space-based solar power company, he was the first one I went to. And I would say he's the smartest person I ever met. And he actually disagreed with me initially. He said, "This is science fiction. It's never going to work." So he took 2 years to do the diligence on me and my idea. And he said, "You're right, and we should do this." So that was great, and the balance of the team I brought on board have been all exceptional. So that's been great. And then all startups live and die on capital. So do your best to raise early, raise often, and control your costs, that you can survive the valley of deaths, which in our case are probably at least 2. So far so good.
Wow, amazing. So, any advice as you're going out to potential investors with new ideas, especially ideas like this that are, you know, have never been done before, might take a little bit of time, probably take a decent amount of capital. How are you going about speaking with those investors?
So you have to be very choosy who you talk to. And unfortunately for us, we live in two verticals. We live in an energy vertical and a space vertical. And oftentimes we'll find that funds set up that are interested in the environment or sustainability. They don't know anything about energy, or they don't know anything about space, and vice versa. So finding investors that understand both is challenging. So do your homework. Try to figure out where they're coming from, and be prepared, because there are lots of questions, especially when you're out in the white space of designs with something that no one's ever heard of or even believed will work. Come to them and say, hey, look, here's their proof points. Do your work, build something that works, and that's operational excellence as well. Those are big keys that investors like to see. So in the course of about 15 months, we went from nothing to a fully operational proof of concept. So, and that was a very large device. It was a 2 meter aperture RF transmitter and a same size 3 receivers, and we built and demonstrated on camera. So also live tech demos are fraught with peril, but you can do it. I always do a little bit of practice ahead of time, but show that your stuff works. Those are the keys.
Right, right. How have you gone about actually getting to that proof of concept? Because I think that can oftentimes be a challenge. So, kind of being able to prove, like you said, this technology is, has a real commercial potential. How did you go about getting to that point where you could get to a proof of concept?
So I would say, as part of your business, commercialization, go-to-market strategy, you need to pick proof points, milestones that validate that you have the right product, you have the right technology, and all those things. And we early on decided, because no one had ever seen wireless power transfer work, that we needed to show that not only does it work, but you can do it in short order. So we use a lot of commercial off-the-shelf components. We designed and constructed the components that we had to in that time frame, but do it as cheap as you can, as soon as you can, and make sure it's meaningful, right? You don't want to have something that's just a simulation on the screen, or even some simple line drawings. Build hardware, build it, and show that it works. Those are key enablers so that you can move on to the next steps.
Right, right, right. And I think, as with many other organizations, we as early stage companies tend to run into the roadblocks along the way. I'm sure you've experienced this. What have you found are the best ways to just work around, through, over these inevitable roadblocks that come up along the way?
Yeah. So plan for failure, hope for success, I think are probably words people have heard before. We've had many instances where we thought something would work and we built it, and it did not work at all. So have backup plans, and if you have no backup plans, huddle your team together as soon as you figure out it doesn't work, and figure out what you might do next. I would say that that was almost a daily or weekly occurrence through the dev cycle, that we built our first proof of concept. But we had some history, developing small scale, a little bit bigger, and finally doing the proof of concept. So we knew a lot of the underlying technology would work, but sometimes the implementation details aren't exactly what you expected. So don't let it get you down. Have backup plans, and surround yourself with smart people, and they often will have good ideas that can pull your fat out of the fire.
Got it. Okay, so I'm really curious about your perspective on this. If you could make one prediction about the future, what would that prediction be?
Um, so I am an incurable optimist. You'll read a lot just because it's clickbaity that the world is going downhill. Not really. The world's better than it's ever been for us humans, and most of the people living here. So I would say that, the world's going to be a better place in the future, and maybe even dramatically better. I would say most people don't realize the impact AI will probably have on all of us, among other things. And the proof points are basically here already. So look at them and think about the implications going forward. So always always look up, don't look down.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so if someone wanted to learn more about Virtus Solis, what should they do?
So you can follow us on LinkedIn primarily for our updates. We post weekly or biweekly. My co-founder, Dr. Tate, has a super interesting series on energy and the environment and other things that you can follow. But our website's www.virtusolis.space. We have a blog, a lot of information there, and also have a YouTube channel that you can catch up on some of the major things that we've done.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I really want to thank you for making time to be here today, John. It was a just very inspiring conversation, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all that Virtus Solis will do in the future.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa. I look forward to showing everyone what's possible.
Excellent. I also do want to take a moment to thank GuideForce for hosting these sessions. To learn more about GuideForce, please visit guideforce.com, and we'll see you next time on the Startup Leader Show.